morning. This is a lesson for leadership for BTEC. So we're going to look at Chalagirai, its model, and we're going to look at types of leadership and the influence those types of leadership can have on athletes. I'll try to set you some tasks that are related to case studies along the way as well. So this is a lesson and hopefully take you about an hour in total. So first of all, leadership is, well, you know what a leader is. It's a coach who is taking control of a group and taking control of their learning. So it's defined, and this would be question 1, as a process of influencing individuals and groups towards their goals. So it's a behavioural process because the coach is behaving in a certain way. So it's the way a leader behaves towards its group members, towards those athletes, and how that leader behaves to direct them towards achieving either their team goals or their individual goals. And I'm sure you can reflect on previous experience about people who you felt were good leaders and people who you felt were poor leaders. And when you reflect on that, you might think about how effective they were. So were they quick to get started on their session, or did you feel they were maybe a bit disorganised and didn't quite know what the strategy was for the lesson or what the end goal was? Did you have a good relationship with them or not? Did the members of the group look up to the leader? Did they think they were significant in some way, more knowledgeable, other something like that, which made them listen better to the task? Was the leader confident? Again, that's usually linked to their level of knowledge. So if we were thinking about a case study here, as the case studies tend to do, the beginning of the case study would be a confident leader and leadership. And we would probably expect to see a team, someone belonging to a team, or someone having an athlete potentially having a coach at the beginning of the case study that was all of those things, that did shared goals, discussed those goals with the person so they were agreed and they were realistic and they were achievable goals, and decisions were shared between the coach and the athlete. So the coach trusted the athlete to make decisions about their future and their training and their performance, as well as the leader being so knowledgeable that they were able to add to that conversation. Then as we go through the case study, we'd expect that to change. So whether the athlete changed teams or moved up a year group and had a different coach, or maybe that coach left and somebody else came in, it doesn't matter particularly. But what we'll expect to see on the second part of that case study is that the relationship is poor. So that we call that a rapport, and they didn't have a rapport with the coach. So it means that the trust has gone. It's a new person coaching them, so they're not, potentially don't trust that they've got the right answers for them, and will ignore will ignore tasks set by the coach because they don't value those tasks. They don't think they're realistic, challenging, or achievable for any of those reasons. Maybe the leader is pushing them too far, too fast, or maybe the leader isn't challenging them enough. So there's also the situation here where the leadership style makes a difference. And this could be a change in the case study as well, where at the beginning of the case study, it's a democratic leader, that you'll see here that the members are consulted and you can make decisions with them. So it's a two-way street between the coach and the athlete. So it's really useful if you have got time to do it, because you're discussing back and forth what's good for the athlete develops a much better understanding of what's required to get where they need to be. But also, once they've achieved that goal, they have a deeper understanding of how they got there. So they're going to be more resilient, they're going to have a more realistic overview on how to set goals in the future. Then I would say on the second part of the case study, we'd see potentially an autocratic leader coming in, which is, look, I know what I'm doing. this is the way we're going to do it. You've hired me for a reason, you've paid me for a reason, I've got great results in the past, you've just got to do as I say. And to a certain extent that can be quite useful if we're looking at a high level of performance, but potentially this could make the athlete very unhappy because they're not making any decisions. And if they're training in a way that they don't see fit, they're going to lose motivation and lose task persistence and become less resilient, maybe even start to resent the coach and start to not do the training. So, I mean, it could be the other way around in a case study, and that we start off with someone who is autocratic, who takes the lead, and the athlete enjoys that because it's time efficient and they've got full trust in the coach because the coach is more knowledgeable than them and has way more experience than them, and they seem to be progressing quite fast actually. And then it could change into a democratic approach that the athlete is just not used to and doesn't feel confident to be able to say, well, actually I think we should do this in training. So it could go either way is what I'm saying. But in terms of case studies, again, we'll have a situation at the beginning where the person influencing the individuals towards their goal is trustworthy, is efficient, is a good communicator, is knowledgeable, and choosing a style that the athlete appreciates. And then in the second half of the case study, it's probably going to be a change of coach or a change of captain to either a style that's not preferred by the athletes, or because they feel that the leader doesn't have the knowledge. On a side note, and this isn't directly in our specification, but it might well come up in a case study, and that is just there are two types of leaders. Now, I don't think you need to remember the names for them because, like I say, it's not in our spec, but it is worth knowing because this causes issues or can cause issues within a group as well. So the two leader types we've got here are prescribed and emergent. Now, a prescribed leader is appointed by the coach themselves. So in year 7, I could get my new netball team. I notice that someone's got good organisation skills, they're good at communicating with the rest of the team, they're very highly motivated, so I say, right, can you be captain? So that's prescribed, I'm prescribing them, I'm giving them the job. And then the opposite to that is someone just tends to take the lead. So my year 7 netballers, again, it tends to be a strong character, someone who's organised, someone who just offers, oh, I'll sort the team for next week, yeah, no problem. And then people just get used to looking to that person. Could be that that person leads well through the game, encouraging people to play, and eventually everyone just sort of leads towards them. So in terms of a case study, I want you to have a think now about which one would be the best type. So your task now, and so in a moment pause the video, but your task is to write down, first of all, a definition of leadership and your notes here, so a leader will need to be, and you can do that in bullet points if you like. Then you're going to do your leadership styles and write those out, autocratic, democratic, and when they're useful situations. And then I want you to consider this, a prescribed or emergent leader. So what I want you to do is write prescribed leader and tell me what it is. Write emergent leader, tell me what that is, give me a definition. And then a little paragraph underneath to explain the difficulties with both and the benefits of both. So you will write something like, a prescribed leader is appointed by the coach. This is useful because, however, it could cause, and give me a negative. Emergent leaders are those who, give me a definition, this is of benefit because, however, and then give me a negative for that. So pause the video while you do that. Okay, so this is another task. All the information you've done so far is related to question 1, so it's factors of leadership. And now we're going to look through this case study. So I've got Eamon's case study. I need you to pause the video again and I need you to work with others if you're all together, if not by yourself. I need you to highlight, if possible, on the computer, so screenshot it and highlight, or print it off, or write down on a piece of paper where there is evidence of leadership. So please pause the video because I'm going to show you what the answers should be. Okay, so we've got Eamon is the leader. The team is experiencing failure at the moment, so they're not productive. Eamon decides is starting to allude that this is an autocratic, because he is deciding. So you could use that as a quote to show this is an autocratic style of leadership. He then introduces new players. Again, that's his decision. He keeps changing the group. So at the moment, there is no evidence to say this is a democracy at all. He's not giving any choices to them. So the impact of this is further down here, where we've got the decision is not popular. So again, we've got autocratic here, where he's made the decision to make somebody else captain. He's picked somebody else, so I'll come to that bit in a minute. But this is the impact, the negative impact of an autocratic leadership, that the decision's not popular. I didn't underline that, but it develops a split. So that's the impact there. This making him captain was a prescribed leader, and in the task that you've just done, you've got the negative impacts of that as well. And the impact should be that sometimes the rest of the team don't agree with it, and they'll start to rebel against it, which is exactly what happens here when it says they're not putting as much effort in. So this is a negative impact. This is all for question 1. There's more evidence here that it's autocratic. So he tells each person what their score is. Now, because we're going a little bit out of sync for the year 12s, there'll be other things in there that you'll spot that you think might be related to leadership. Year 13, you should have been looking through that, and hopefully you've realised that this is about cohesion, this is about group dynamics. So this is about whether the team are building relationships with each other, whether we're all working towards a common goal. It could be group formation in terms of where they are forming, storming, norming or performing, those sorts of things. So you would have picked out little bits like that. But I'm just going to focus on the leadership today. So he's called a meeting to discuss. Now, this is where we start to see that things might be changing. So there's a little bit of evidence to say that he's now asking for their opinion. So this is the way forward. This could be the change that Eamon needs. So this is starting to be a democracy. However, it's a little bit too much too late. And the captain, so this is last year's leader, says that they're just not good enough for the new players, and he doesn't understand how the team's playing. He's left angrily, doesn't like it. So he is making all the decisions. So he also appears to be an autocratic leader, and it looks like his confidence has been knocked a little bit by Eamon. Now, you can go on to discuss there, had Eamon gone for a democracy at the beginning and ask, look, guys, we're not succeeding, we're not achieving our goals, what can we do about it? What do you think we should do about it? This is what I think, and gone a different way about it. All right, but that's what we should have picked up for question 1, I think. So this is now question 2. Everything we do here is about question 2. So we've done the factors already. So we're moving on to Chaladuri. Chaladuri. It's really good to say it out loud because don't worry too much about the spelling of it, but do try to remember the name. Chaladuri. Multi-dimensional, meaning that we've got a few things to look at, and actually we're going to be looking at 6 things in total and how they interact with each other. So I'm going to show you this, then I'm going to show you the model of it, and then we'll discuss where to put it in on question 2 with a case study. So this might be lesson 2, so your second hour of the day. So Chaladuri says before the coach should choose a leadership style. So if we think back about Eamon, before he decided whether to use autocratic or democratic, he should have considered the following things. So to look at the group, observe them, see what the group needs, and consult with the group before picking a leadership style. And those leadership styles were either I go autocratic, I go democratic, I might change, because a leader doesn't have to make their mind up on what style they are at the beginning and say, I am an autocratic leader and that's the only way I will do it. Sometimes, and it might be because it's dangerous, it might be because it's a new team, it might be because you're lacking in time, you have to choose an autocratic style. Sometimes, if time allows, if you really need the athletes to gain a deeper understanding, so you're looking at tactics and strategies, so not just I'm moving here and this is the point I'm going to move. Why am I waiting here? Why am I running in this direction? Why am I waiting before I run? So if you want them to get a much deeper understanding, then you would go for the democratic style. There's also things like developing relationships as well, and if it's a new group and you need to get established, use autocratic, and then once the roles are established and you're in the sort of norming phase of Tuckman, year 12, we'll come to that soon. If you're in the norming stage with Tuckman, then you might start to use the democratic, where you get to have a chat, because you get to consult with the athletes a little bit more, because this might boost your self-confidence and levels of motivation. So let's have a look anyway at Chaladuri's model, how we choose whether to be democratic or autocratic for that task. So not long term, but for that task. And the first thing we're going to look at then is the situational characteristics. So let's put this into layman's terms, and it just means we're going to look at the situation that we're in. All right, let's see. Have we got a big group or have we got a small group? If we have larger groups, for the very sake of just trying to organise a group of 35, you're probably best off going for an autocratic style. Get yourselves into 4s, you 4 go over into there, you 4 go to there, this is the drill that we're doing. It gets everyone moving quickly and so can be quite efficient. Okay? If we're looking at the type of skill that we're doing, I mentioned this before, set plays you need to consult, you need people's opinions. And you need that because they'll know each other's strengths and limitations and who works well together and where they're normally positioned, probably better than you will. So they can say, oh, look, I'm quite confident at doing this, so why don't I do this? This has worked in the past, let's try that. Because they're having input into it, they're going to be more motivated to try it out as well. So we can look at the current result as well, whether the team is losing or whether the team's winning. So Eamon's team were losing. So he needs to make a decision about whether he would use the autocratic or democratic. And there might be a situation where he could use either of those. So if the team is losing, you could consider using the democratic style to get people on board, to keep motivation high, or you could take charge of the situation, and that depends again on the rest of the situation. So you're considering that and then making a decision on which type of leadership to do. Then the leader must look at the members. So we call it member characteristics. So you do need to know that terminology for Chaladuri because it's specific vocabulary to Chaladuri, but we look at the member characteristics. Okay, so look at the personalities that we've got going in there, whether we've got novice, so cognitive performers, or whether we've got autonomous performers. Apparently males prefer an autocratic style and females prefer a democratic style, but obviously that's not written in stone, but you have a think about that. So the leader is considering the situation, how much time we've got, is it a big group, what type of skill are we learning, are we winning at the moment or are we losing. Then they consider the member characteristics, so the personalities that they've got in there, whether the people are novice performers. They might also look at the reasons that the members are there. So whether the members are in the cognitive stage, in the autonomous stage, so whether they're socially more driven or whether they're task orientated. Then they look at their own personality. So the leader characteristics, again, is the key terminology for Chaladri. The leader looks at their personal qualities, their traits. So are they confident in it? Because if they're really confident and they're really experienced, you might go down the autocratic route. If they're very experienced here, look, if actually, to be honest, from a leader's point of view, if you are not experienced, a democratic style is a nightmare. So sometimes if they're less experienced, they tend to go for autocratic because you can pre-plan. I think I've told you before, when I first started teaching, excuse me, I had cue cards in my pocket and it was very much autocratic because I had to have control of it all to begin with. And then as experience continues and knowledge develops, you can be a bit more democratic with these things because you can offer an opinion to new ideas that people come up with. We can look at levels of assertiveness. So that to be assertive means to put your opinion across. So is related directly to the level of confidence of somebody. Their level of motivation, the leader's level of motivation. All right, so the first part of Chaladri's model is that the leader must observe the situation, consider the members, and consider the leader. We will look at answers for this as well. So this is Chaladri's model. If you want to take a minute to pause the video and copy this out, and then restart the video, and you can add your notes to it if you'd like to. Okay, so hopefully you've drawn that out, and we have gone through these already. So this is the situation, this is the leader characteristics, and these are the member characteristics. So what you can do here now to annotate your diagram is, for the situation, you could say we're going to look at group size, or the coach looks at the size of the group, whether the team is winning or whether the team is losing, so whether they're successful or not. It might look at whether the game is a recreational game or whether it's a task-orientated game, you know, like a cup final. Then they look at the member characteristics, looking at potentially what stage of learning they're at, so whether they're cognitive performers, whether they're autonomous performers, and looking at their personality traits and characteristics. And then finally, a bit of self-reflection on their level of experience, their knowledge in the area, in the skill that they're teaching. And again, don't forget, this isn't a permanent stage of leadership. This is, in this situation, at this time, with this group, what leadership style should I use? So I'm going to jump across to the end here now, where we're looking at the consequences. So these are antecedents. We're familiar with this word, but basically what it means is factors. Okay, so that's all it means. So the factors that we consider. So Chaladri says we consider these things, and this will affect the overall performance of the group and the level of satisfaction of the group. And obviously, if you want satisfaction in your group, or if you get a high level of satisfaction, you'll also get increased self-confidence, increased task persistence, so resilience, the ability to keep trying at something and challenge themselves, and you're going to get increased motivation in the long term. So essentially more cohesive, team that's going to work harder to achieve their goals, i.e. an increase in levels of performance because of all of these things down here. So there's one more section that we haven't looked at, and that's this leader behaviour. And all this means is what the leader needs to do. Okay, so leader behaviour, what the leader will actually end up doing. So required behaviour means you look at the situation, so that's this arrow here, you look at the situation and you look at the required behaviour. So let's look at a couple of examples of this. If the situation is that we have a large group size that have been losing, okay? If we go straight across here, the required behaviour would have to be autocratic. Does that make sense? It's asking the leader to consider the situation and using their knowledge of leadership, the theory of leadership, what is required on paper, forgetting the leader, what they prefer, and the member characteristics, all right? Ignoring those things, if they just look at the situational factors and it's a massive group and they've currently been losing, they need to do autocratic style, and they need to do that because they need to get going on training really quickly, and they've got a lot to organise with this large group, and they've got to do specific tasks for their weaknesses. So autocratic, all right, that's not considering anything else. Excuse me. I'm going to jump to the member characteristics and their preferred behaviour. So this is asking the leader to consider, all right, you've considered the stage of learning, whether they're cognitive or autonomous performers, what their personality traits are, and now you know that, what do you think is their preferred behaviour? So if they are a cognitive group and have quite a low level of knowledge, then their preferred behaviour would be autocratic. Okay? So now we consider what the required behaviour is. So that the leader has thought, large group, they've been losing. On paper it says we should use autocratic. The members are at the cognitive stage of learning and they would prefer it as cognitive learners who have low level of knowledge and experience. They would prefer the autocratic style. Then I do what I need to do. So the leader, considering what they're able to do, and this leader has the experience and the knowledge, as I said, they know the drills that they can do. Their actual behaviour is what they do. So what the leader actually then does. And the leader is looking at the autocratic, this arrow here, and they've decided that the preferred behaviour is autocratic, so the actual behaviour needs to be autocratic. And that means we are equaling high level of performance and a high level of satisfaction. If, for some odd reason, the leader didn't look at the situational factors or thought it was autocratic, thought that the members wanted autocratic but actually did a democratic, what would happen? Have a think about it. What would happen to performance and satisfaction? That's right. We get a decrease in performance and a decrease in satisfaction, and then a situation like aiming on our hands. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and give me an example of a democratic outcome, and I will put the answer up on here for you. So just pause the video for me. So in my democratic example, the situation is going to be that they want to work on and a well-established team. The group members are in the associative phase, which means they're somewhere between cognitive and autonomous. So it's sort of year 10, year 11, so there's plenty of knowledge there, and they're keen to develop that knowledge. So that's our member characteristics. The leader is knowledgeable, is able, got plenty of experience as well. In terms of personality, they're quite good communicators, they're pretty easygoing. Okay, they have a good rapport, basically, with the members. So if we have a look at what is required behaviour, for tactics, for an established team, the required behaviour would be a democratic style. So they can discuss it. They've got knowledge because they're an established team, and the situation means that they've got to work on tactics. They've got to decide what they're going to do and when to do it. So there's lots of decisions that need to be made. So therefore it's better if it comes from both people rather than in that autocratic style. The member characteristics are that they are associative, so they've got some knowledge, they're keen, they're enthusiastic, they're motivated, so democratic would be good for them. We'll just add on there, they're quite motivated people. And so the actual behaviour, if the leader, and according to Cheladuri, once they have considered all of these things and these things, the actual behaviour should reflect that. Look, with these arrows here, should reflect it. So if a democratic style is chosen, yes, so you've guessed it, we get an increase in performance and an increase in satisfaction. If the leader ignores all of this information and ends up doing an autocratic, then we are going to get reduced performance and reduced satisfaction. I'm hoping that makes sense for you. So I have one last task for you to do, and that's to go back through the case study and highlight the Cheladuri's model, where we could put it in. So pause the video, and again, you can print this out, or you can just make notes on your whiteboard or on a piece of paper. If you do it on your whiteboard, can you photograph it for me? And go through. I will give you the answers in a moment, so pause the video for me. So the first thing I'm getting here, obviously at the moment they're a low achieving team, but the team is established. They played last season, so they have played together for a while. So I would say this is one of the situational factors that I would highlight. And then along from that is the required behaviour. So what do we think would be the required behaviour here for an established team? I would say a democratic style. He actually used an autocratic style, but democratic here because they're established. They've got some experience. They know what they're doing. I think in terms of this part where he's introduced new players, he is working in small groups and is changing the groups regularly so people get to know each other, is a good technique to use, actually. So I think he's along the right lines there in trying to develop cohesion with the team. So, but unfortunately hasn't considered here, so there's no consideration for the members' preferred behaviour according to the model. So there's no consideration been made. He's just made all of those decisions. So he's doing the autocratic. He's working them in small groups. He's changing them around. So his intentions are good, but it is not what the members preferred, because the members, we're assuming autocratic performers, so they're quite experienced performers. And so therefore, their preferred style of leadership, again, would be democratic, and he is doing autocratic. So you'd say both of those things. In terms of leadership qualities, there's no statement on there to show the leadership qualities particularly, but we know he's got experience in training them, and we know that he's quite organised, and it does appear that his natural personality is to be autocratic. So I would probably surmise and say it appears, words like that. Then we've got the results. So at the end, we should see, if he's picked the right leadership style, we should see increased task persistence and increased performance. Obviously, he's picked the wrong style. We've shown that here and here. He's using the autocratic style and not the democratic style. So the overall result is that the team is performing poorly. So we've got the results are still poor and they lose the first matches. They're not putting effort in. So that's our task persistence and our performance at the end. And we can show, therefore, that the results are low for task persistence and low for performance, which is the 3 areas of the model. So just to recap really quickly on here, what we've got is we have got situational factors at the top here, an established team, a losing team. So the required behaviour, which according to Jaladri you need to link to situational factors, the required behaviour was that a democratic style should be chosen to develop relationships between the teams because they're established. Because they're a losing team, they need to develop that confidence and that interaction with each other. He unfortunately chose autocratic. Then we've got the second layer, so it's at the bottom of the bottom left of the model, in that we look at the member characteristics, and the members were autonomous performers. They have experience because it's at least their second year of playing. They seem like an established team, and the coach needed to consider their preferred behaviour, what they actually wanted to happen. So again, democratic, they would have liked to have been consulted to talk about the way they're moving forward, so they're involved in that decision making, but instead the coach autocratically led. Because the coach chose the wrong required behaviour and the wrong preferred behaviour, the results were that it reduced task persistence and it reduced, satisfaction, and it reduced performance. Satisfaction, that is, and for performance. I really hope you found the lesson useful. Let me know. I would appreciate some feedback actually to see if this sort of thing does work for you. And if you've got any questions or queries, write them all down on your whiteboards if you like and send me photos, or we can discuss them at the beginning of tomorrow's lesson. All right, well done.